IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello, welcome to Football Twaddle. My name is Saru, and as always, I have Yash with me here. Yash is half excited with Ralf Rangnick, and he's half confused on why he's even being appointed. Yash, what's up?
Hey man, all good.
Yeah, and we are somehow ahead of the curve this time. And we've been doing this podcast for quite some time, and we have loyal following, whatever. But the thing is that we always seem to be a week late in terms of recording the content of any big news. And what has happened today is that I think I've known our guest on Twitter primarily for quite some time. And he is also lucked out. And he's written a book on the Red Bull Revolution, which was released September 2020. And he is right in time for all the media frenzy that's going to happen because of Ralf Rangnick being announced by Manchester United. Karan Tejwani, what's up?
I'm very good, so thank you for having me on. The book came out, as you mentioned, at the right time, November 2020. It's strange to see Ralf Rangnick at a club like Manchester United because it's a very un-Manchester United kind of thing to do. It happened so quickly as well, just very surprising to see, and it should be fun at least.
It should. All right. So before the book is called Wings of Change, it's primarily about Red Bull and their foray into football and how they've gone about it. Karan, before we speak about Ralf Rangnick, why did you find this topic to be interesting?
The idea of the book itself wasn't purely down to Ralf Rangnick. It was down to the Red Bull football model.
Yeah.
So now we all know Red Bull, and they're fairly popular or unpopular, depending on how you look at it. It's popular because of how they go about their football. So that's really attractive football, with how they play, how enjoyable they are to watch, and how they are happy to develop young players. And everyone likes that sort of success story. But it's also unpopular because of the financial backing they have and how and the unfair resources or the unfair advantage they have in terms of their resources and how they've got this sort of unnatural rise to the top of the German football ladder. So the book covers both sides of it, and at the center of it all is Ralf Rangnick, who sort of made this empire for all the Red Bull football clubs. So it looks into all of that.
Yeah. So Yash and I have been doing some revision over the weekend, and I did reread most parts of your book. Second chapter, enter Ralf Rangnick. The first chapter was yeah, the club is there, but the loyal supporters basically hate Red Bull for everything they're doing and changing. But they still went on to win some titles. So but they wanted a identity of sorts, right? And that is where, I think that's where your first chapter ends, and the second chapter enters this mythical figure of Ralf Rangnick. So my first question to you is, Manchester United have appointed this guy, which is, I think, by all accounts,
he's still not official yet. Huh? I mean,
they've just over on Twitter, it's there. So I'm assuming that it'll be like such a big. It'll be so stupid if they don't announce him now.
We know it's going to be announced. It's just
I think it has been announced officially like half an hour ago or so.
Yeah. About half an hour ago. So Karan, let's start. Is this a good appointment? None of us expected it.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the main doubt over his work and his caliber has been because of his lack of experience at a top level club like Manchester United. I think things would have been different if he managed a Bayern Munich or a Borussia Dortmund or something like that in the past in Germany. But because his main work was with Leipzig and Hoffenheim and other German clubs who haven't been that successful, and the fact that his CV is not that shiny like a Zidane or a Ten Hag would be, that he hasn't won many trophies, it just puts some doubt. But I think you have to look beyond the trophies and beyond just who he's managed. You have to look at what he's done and his legacy in the German game in the past 30 years. He's been in management for as I mentioned, almost 30 years now, which is about half his lifespan. And his influence is visible in people like Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea and Bayern and Julian Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich and Marco Rose at Borussia Dortmund. So his influence in the German game is quite massive in itself, and I think that's what makes him stand out. The surprise for me came because United don't make appointments like this, or haven't been known to make appointments like this, where they focus on being a football club primarily and a business club secondarily. So it should be good for United because of Rangnick's similarities and how he lines up with the club's model. We know United are quite adamant on promoting younger players to the academy. We've seen it so many times in the past. And that's something Ralph Rangnick likes to do. United already have the top-class infrastructure in place to satisfy Rangnick's needs, and Rangnick can work around that. The issue for him might come with the squad itself, where the squad lacks in certain areas. But I imagine he'd be able to fix that in the near future, possibly even in the January window.
Yeah. Yes. Does this mean that the club is basically now gone completely different direction and given the keys to Old Trafford to Ralph Rangnick?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the appointments that have been made after Ferguson, each successive appointment is so different from the previous one that if you take a long-term view, this should not surprise you. I mean, Moyes was supposed to be continuity. Louis van Gaal was supposed to bring back the stature. Jose was supposed to win you the trophies. Ole was supposed to bring you the culture. So they have been lurching from one end to the other. Having said that, I think somehow by shooting in the dark, they have arrived at what I personally feel is the right decision. Because I think he's been appointed for 6 months as the manager, and then he has a consultancy role. So, I mean, I certainly hope these six months are like sort of a teach the teacher course for the personnel, the coaches, even the higher ups at Manchester United to learn and soak up everything that they can from this man.
Yeah, that's what Karan, this guy is not a manager. He's not been a manager for a long time. Like, if you take over the last 10-year period, he's been a manager probably for 2 or 3 years, not more than that, right? So why would you appoint someone? You're basically appointing him to be a director of football, which the club doesn't have, right?
Yeah, you'd imagine that's the case as well. They want him to oversee the football side of the club. Now, the way I see it, Manchester United haven't been a proper football club for at least 15 years. They've been focused primarily on, getting that brand out there, and the owners want to make the most money they can for themselves and benefit the most. So when we say Manchester United Football Club, they haven't been football club for a very long time. They've been out of touch with their supporters. There's no connection with them. There's been no close community feeling that there used to be at some point. There's no connection with the fans, and they've not respected Old Trafford as a stadium. It looks old and worn out, even though the renovations recently have given it a bit of a facelift. So when they sacked Solskjaer, I felt the first thing they needed to do was rebuild that connection, or at least the owners try to build that connection for the first time. And getting in a top football man like Ralph Rangnick is going to help them. The squad itself is quite disjointed. In some areas they're lacking, in some areas they're overjoyed or over present. They have great wingers, great attacking players, but maybe you could say in midfield they're lacking, in defence they're lacking. So that needs to be addressed almost immediately. And in the long run, beyond just Rangnick's six-month period where he's an interim manager, they have to find the right manager to take them into a new era of success, which they haven't been able to do for a long time. And you mentioned continuity earlier as well. We know Van Gaal's football was more conservative, or he tried to be expressive with his football, but he wasn't successful in that regard. Mourinho was more, he had a very disjointed squad, and by the end, the mood in the squad was broken. I think Ole Solskjaer post-Fergie, I think he's the best post-Fergie manager United have had, because he rebuilt that culture, as we mentioned, and he rebuilt the team as it's meant to be, and he left the club in a better shape than what he found it in. So I think he's been, even though he didn't win trophies, he had quite a successful tenure in that regard, especially considering his lack of CV and his lack of top level managerial experience. So I think bringing in Ralph Rangnick is good, and he has a similar, or Solskjaer has a similar thought process in football when it comes to management. So I think that he can help. That the squad is built relatively well around that. So it just needs a few more players to come in and give it a bit of a boost. But I think it's in a good place to do well. I think the short-term goal should be at least to perhaps go as far as they can in the Champions League, at least the quarterfinals, and if they can win a cup, it's a bonus. And additionally finish in the top four.
Oh yeah, you're like giving out Manchester United's board wish list. This is exactly what they want. So I hope like what's up with German coaches? Why are they the most sought after in like I don't know, at least in the Premier League, right? If any new manager who comes in, they always look at who's the shiny manager in Germany. And Ralph is like the shiniest of them all. As you said before, that he has his influence is like unsurpassed in German. So what makes German coaches way more attractive to other leagues right now or other clubs?
I think it's just it's a phase where German coaching is at its peak and other countries are starting to recognize that, especially in the Premier League where clubs have more money than any other league or any other club in Europe, where the financial gap is so big between themselves and other leagues that the Premier League immediately becomes an attractive proposition regardless of who you manage in Europe. But for German coaching itself, it's quite a successful period because of how they see football. The vision for football is to play attractively and play high up the pitch and press as hard as it can. It just has to be, fast grab football that gets you results, and most of them do get results. And I feel Jurgen Klopp's a big proponent of this as well. I think he was the first example that if you import a top-level German manager from Germany, you can get good results, and you do have a long-term vision. I think that's what German clubs focus on themselves, that when they appoint a manager or when they sack a manager, there is a long-term plan. And most clubs in the Bundesliga have this. So they have a long-term vision of what they're going to do with this coach and how they plan to build in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. So it comes around with that. And, when Chelsea sacked Frank Lampard earlier in the year, it was almost an expectation that they were going to sign a German manager because their squad was built to that German profile.
Yeah.
In the previous summer, they signed Havertz and Werner and a couple of other players who were able to play that high-level intensity football. So that's the same with United as well. They're able to play that high-pressing football that the squad has plenty of energy with players like Bruno and Sancho and Fred and Rashford coming through. So it's good for them. And I think the German manager, they need to get a right German manager in, and they've got probably one of the best ones in Rangnick. So it's good for them too. So it's a phase where German coaching is at its peak, and the results are there to match it. I think the last 4 Champions League winning coaches are from Germany, with Thomas Tuchel, Jurgen Klopp, and Hansi Flick. It's last 3 coaches, and Klopp was in the final in 2018. So it's a successful strategy for many clubs to follow.
Yes, what are you worried about? Let's just go for it. The United brand will shine through. But one of the things, Yash, is that this is what Ralf Rangnick told in one of the interviews. He said, at Hoffenheim, we set up a countdown clock on the training pitch. You have 10 seconds to score a goal and 8 seconds to win a ball back. The player could hear the clock as a constant reminder, and it got on their nerves. Basically, he was trying to annoy them to trigger a behavioral change. How is that going to affect Harry Maguire more than anyone?
I don't know. He'll lose his mind, man. Given the performances he's been putting out for the last couple of months, I guess.
Yeah, but given you heard everything, do you think actually the squad is up for it, especially the defense? I think McTominay and Fred will actually get on quite well with this. I have a feeling that the defense is quite shaky, and they will again invest money into the defense.
No, but United generally don't invest money in December. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they did. And there's one quote, there are many of his quotes that are going around, but the one quote that sticks out for me is, if you don't buy the right players, at least don't buy the wrong ones. I might be getting the quote wrong slightly. But yeah, the approach that United have for signing players or have had in the last decade is not something that to brag about. And this is one thing I hope our new manager manages to fix.
Yeah, like basically change the way you approach, but like basically rehaul just get the entire thing going, right? It's been so disjointed.
Yeah, they of course invest a lot of money into the players, but clearly the squad seems disjointed. I don't think maybe the players don't complement each other well enough.
Yeah. Karan, but is that how we would describe this brand of football? Basically get the ball, recover the ball as soon as possible and score as fast as possible. Rest everything is just noise.
I think there's a lot more to it. I think that's one of the core elements of it. I think that they want to have, or Ralph Rangnick's teams are known to have, as you mentioned, they want to win the ball back quickly and try to attack as effectively as they can. But they also want to have numerical superiority in areas where they want to overload certain areas to win the ball back. They want to play quickly in transition. So that's moving quickly from defense to attack and doing it as efficiently as they can. And that's some of the core models of the the Rangnick brand of football. And he's been able to implement it quite successfully at other clubs, as we've seen. And I think that United have a lot of talent in their squad to actually pull that off. The likes of Rashford and Sancho. He's loved Sancho for such a long time. He wanted to bring him to RB Leipzig, but he chose Dortmund instead, Sancho. So I think he'd be one of the core players in the squad. Bruno Fernandes, obviously, with his energy. Every manager loves to have him in the squad, apart from Fernando Santos for the Portugal national team. But every manager loves him, and I'm sure it'd be the same for Rangnick as well. He'd be one of the core players in the team. Same for Rashford. Same for, I'm assuming, Fred, because we saw Fred yesterday. He was quite good against Chelsea, and he brought that level of energy that no one else could in midfield.
Talking of Fred, I mean, you like Fred a lot, don't you? I've seen you praise Fred quite a lot when everyone else in the world is like trying to abuse him.
I don't think he's the best midfielder on the ball, at least, but he does bring certain qualities. Like I mentioned, his energy is quite good and quite useful for a team. So, people like Solskjaer found him quite handy because of what he brought to the team. I personally, if I had an ideal team of players for United, I wouldn't have him in my first team, but I wouldn't sell him from the squad because of how useful he can be in these type of games, in these type of big games where the opposition team likes to play quickly on the counter and all that. But I don't think he's the worst player in the world. I don't think that he's as bad as many people make out. If you watch his games for Brazil last month or last week or 2 weeks ago against Argentina, he had probably the best performance I've ever seen from him. And he plays really well for Brazil, mainly because he's in a more attack, or I don't want to say attacking, a bit more advanced role. And he's not purely based on defending, which he often is for United. So he's a better player than most people make out.
Yeah, this is something I've observed. Like Xhaka is a much better player for Switzerland than he's for Arsenal. And Pogba obviously plays so well for France compared to his disjointed performances at United. Fred, I think, yes, it's about the clubs. You can't fault the players. So stop abusing Fred on the internet.
No, I don't usually do that, but I don't know. International football is something quite different than playing club football week in week out.
All right, let's get to the story, Karan. Let's get back to the story. Why did Red Bull hire Ralph Rangnick? They didn't need to. From everything I've read, and obviously I've taken stuff from your book as well. They were doing fine, winning championships at Salzburg. So they really didn't need to. Why did they go out and hire this guy?
It's true in the case of Salzburg, but I think in terms of the main idea was to get Leipzig promoted to the Bundesliga. And that's where they were struggling because they had a broken football model. And for Salzburg, both Salzburg and Leipzig were signing older players, players who were at the end of their careers or just looking for one final big contract before retiring or something like that. They just didn't have ambitions to see the club grow. They just had personal ambitions. Which I suppose is fair enough for all the footballers. But they brought in Rangnick because they wanted to establish a clear football identity. And, at the time, Salzburg were winning championships, but they weren't able to progress in Europe. They never got too far in the Champions League. And at the time as well, Leipzig were struggling in the third division of German football. So their main goal of reaching the Bundesliga was difficult to achieve. Ultimately, when Ralph Rangnick came over, he fixed that up. He made Salzburg a younger team, invested a lot in their academy. Within 2 years, they opened up a 400 million euro academy, which is a brilliant thing to look at. If you look at the pictures, it's state-of-the-art modern academy, very picturesque because of where it's based in the mountains. And it looks great. It's very visually appealing, and it has the most modern facilities and modern technology. In Leipzig, the average age of the squad was reduced. Before that, they signed 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds. But after that, they signed players from various countries. So they sort of fixed up their squad and got themselves promoted. People like Emil Forsberg, Willi Orban all came in, and they're still playing at Leipzig right now. So you can see how impactful those signings were. And immediately within
didn't he buy
3 years,
Mane for like $400,000 or something?
Yeah, I think it was a little more than that, but he bought him for around that fee for Salzburg, and also Naby Keita for a similar fee. Both came from second division French clubs. I think it was Metz for the both of them. But yeah, they both came in, and it was a successful strategy, and that reduced the average age of the squad, reduced the intensity of the squad, reduced the pressure on the older players in the squad, and they immediately went up. And Salzburg continued winning championships. They went far in the Europa League. They reached the semi-final in 2018. Leipzig went to the Bundesliga, and they were fighting with Bayern Munich for the title at one time, and they still they were last season at least. And that's his legacy. They needed to bring him in because they wanted progress, and he gave them that progress.
Is he like the most respected management figure in German football?
No, absolutely not. People hate him. Mainly because he worked with Hoffenheim and RB Leipzig, and people hate those two clubs. He's very... The general feeling is that he's very respected in terms of what he's done for German football, in terms of his ideas, and what his mentor Helmut Grosch has done. But they hate him because of his rather brash personality. He's very forward-thinking in a way, which it's not a bad thing, but some people think he's too big-headed, sometimes even too arrogant for that level. And because he worked at Hoffenheim and RB Leipzig, which are the two most hated clubs in German football by far, he's been quite successful with them too. So people hate him for that reason.
Isn't he given credit for Isn't he given credit for walking out of Hoffenheim when the owner basically backstabbed him and started selling players?
Yeah, they sold Luis Gustavo in 2011, who went to Bayern Munich, and that was without Rangnick's knowledge, and he walked out of the club. And that's something he's willing to do as well. He walks out of situations where he's not trusted enough, which is why I was so surprised he went to United, because United are known to be quite stingy in their ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. So this is the thing, right? United basically were waiting for Fergie to retire because they obviously can't do anything to him. But I have a feeling that Ed Woodward and the owners refuse to literally hand over the keys, or at least give a massive sphere of influence to any of the managers who came in after that. And if I remember, during Mourinho's time, there was a whole talk of Luis Campos coming in as director of football, and that didn't happen. Yeah. So it is so surprising, because Ralf Rangnick will walk out if he is not given the powers to do what he will. You think we'll be left in a situation where Ed Woodward will be like, oh God, what have I done? Or he's like, this is someone else's problem because I'm gone in December?
I think that could be the case. That as I mentioned, Rangnick is known to do that. I think he's done that at every club apart from Red Bull. So I think Red Bull is one of the few clubs that he's had a very normal relationship throughout, where he didn't have any feuds with anyone. So that's a bit of an issue, which is why I was so surprised to happen, because United are known to be like that. You've seen Mourinho, especially when Mourinho demanded certain things and he didn't get any. And Mourinho himself has talked about it publicly, and I do back him for that. I think that he was right to demand things to improve, and he often didn't get it. But yeah, that won't be Ed Woodward's issue in the end. It will be Richard Arnold or John Murtough's issue now, because Woodward's leaving and he's left other people in charge. But I imagine that they would have given Ralf Rangnick some assurances that they would give him some freedom, because Rangnick wouldn't have taken the job otherwise. He spoke to The Guardian 2 years ago, where he said he wants a certain level of control over the club if he was to take over Manchester United ever, and he mentioned that he wanted that level of trust in him. So I imagine United would have given him that assurance, that they would have given him a 6-month contract and then do a consultancy role where he has an active influence in the decision making. So I think it should be more streamlined now, and they'd give him all the keys to the football operations.
Yeah, but yes, here's the thing. Yeah. Why give a consultancy role after 6 months then? Just call him the director of football. Make it a permanent role. What is this consultancy? You think, is it because Rangnick doesn't trust United, or United are still hesitant about it?
No, but they have certain personnel in place. Like Fletcher is supposed to be the technical director of football, and different organization structures work in different ways. So, I mean, it remains to be seen how much control he has as a consultant. Now, United anyway, Solskjaer had to go. Someone had to come in and take over for 6 months. So yeah, it sort of works out. This sort of progression works out. It remains to be seen how much control he has as that consultant. I hope he does have the keys to control several things, because history suggests that the hierarchy in the last decade haven't been all that great.
Yeah, Karan, if you look at Fabio Paratici or even Thiago Pinto at Roma, or even Paul Mitchell, or Luis Campos, any of the powerful or good food directors of football, they are employed. They're not on consultancy basis, are they?
Yeah, they aren't. Rangnick himself has been working as a consultant for the last couple of months. He said that he wants to work for several clubs, not just one club. And he's been working mainly with Lokomotiv Moscow, which is where United signed him from. So it does seem a bit strange that he's got a consultancy role per se. But I imagine that it would change in the future if the 6 months under Rangnick now are good. I imagine that they want to look at the 6 month period and see where they can appoint him. And if it's not good enough, they'd probably just get rid of him. But I think the 6 month period will tell a lot for where he stands. I think if they achieve their goals, as I mentioned earlier, of being in the top 4, going far in the Champions League, or at least winning a cup, they'd want to give him a more permanent role and see how well he can do, and give him the summer transfer window to see where he'd invest.
All right. Okay. On this note, we should take a break and we'll come back and talk to Karan more about Ralph Rangnick and what will happen at Manchester United. So stay tuned to Football Total.
Habits? Routines? How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy to do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday, because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.
All right, welcome back to Football Total. Yash and Karan with us. Karan, before we get back to Ralph Rangnick and his problems at Manchester United, how did he find Jesse Marsch? Like, God, who finds an American coach?
Jesse Marsch's work came from, the MLS. He was a player for many different MLS clubs in Chicago and Philadelphia, I believe. And he used to work with Montreal Impact when they were founded in 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And he was their first ever head coach. So he had a fairly decent season. Not very good, not very bad. It was good enough for a first season and a first-time club. And he got sacked, surprisingly, by the owner, who was very happy to sack managers like the Roman Abramovich of MLS, Joey Saputo. So he got sacked, and his reputation was still good, and he was eventually appointed at the New York Red Bulls. For what reason, we're not entirely sure, but the Red Bull family felt they had something good in him because they were impressed by his football, even though he hadn't managed for almost 1 year or 2 years at the time. But he had a fair idea of football. He impressed in his interviews. Even Gerard Houllier, who used to work with the Red Bull football empire as a consultant, he was very impressed by Jesse Marsch. So they appointed him on and they gave him the job. And at New York Red Bulls, he's probably their best ever coach because he won 2 Supporter Shield titles, which is given to the club with the best calendar record, so the best record in a single year. And he did quite well then. He was given the opportunity to go manage at Leipzig as an assistant to Ralph Rangnick in 2018, and he was quite good there before getting the full-time job at Red Bull Salzburg, where he also won 2 consecutive league titles and 2 cups, and also took them to the Champions League for the first time.
And now he's gone back to Red Bull Leipzig as the head coach.
And now he's gone back to Leipzig. So he's been at three different Red Bull clubs, and he is the ideal example of the Red Bull football model for coaches.
Yeah. So would you say that this is probably the biggest success of the Red Bull football group? Like, they have a club in the US, one in Austria, one in Germany, and I'm not too sure. Do they have one in Australia as well? Or not yet?
No, it's Brazil they're looking at. They've got clubs in 4 different countries. I think it's the exact number is 7 different clubs in 4 countries. So that's Leipzig, Salzburg in Austria, and also FC Liefering, which is their junior club. So 2 clubs in Austria. They've got New York Red Bulls in MLS, and they've got 2 clubs in Brazil, which is Bragantino and Red Bull Brazil, which plays in the 4th division of Brazilian football. All 4 of them are quite successful too. So 6 different clubs.
And they seem to have been there's a sort of cohesion and coordination between the four clubs or seven clubs between the four countries, and they promote internally as well. So more than the City Football Group, this is a model which actually looks at this looks like a proper football organization.
Yeah, you could say they're more successful than City Football Group too, because they've had players moving around so frequently. As 35 players have transferred between those 7 clubs in the last 15 years. It's a bit controversial, but it works for them, and they've had lots of coaches and directors as well. Jesse Marsh, as I mentioned earlier, was the biggest example. Ralf Rangnick worked at 3 different clubs. Gerard Houllier was a consultant for all of them too at one point. So lots of different figures have been moving around, lots of scouts as well. Because they have the similar football model, all 4 clubs, it's easy for players and coaches to transition between them, so they don't need much time transferring. So, Tyler Adams was a very good example because he moved from MLS to the German Bundesliga, which is a different level of intensity, and he made it look so easy, and he's been quite successful now. So it's a good model for them, and it's quite successful for them too.
Do you think we'll see a Red Bull team in the ISL?
I doubt it very much. They have a partnership with FC Goa since 2020, but they're mainly focusing now on having developmental partnerships where they focus on the academy level and that sort of level. So I think that after ISL, they'll move on to a few other Asian leagues, maybe in Australia. But they do seem very intent on making youth partnerships and partnerships with academies to bring players over to either Germany or Austria.
Yeah, I don't think, this is when they make partnerships, it's not like how Atletico Madrid or how other clubs make partnerships in India. They would genuinely want it to work.
Right?
Yeah. So otherwise, I think the strangest of them all is that Bengaluru FC, which is like probably the most professionally run club in India. They don't have a partnership with Glasgow Rangers. So
I don't know. I mean, I know lots of Indian clubs have partnerships with European clubs for the sake of having a partnership.
Yeah,
I think Southampton formed a partnership with
Chennai something.
Yeah, I think that was the case, and it just seems not very plastic in a way. It just seems like they don't want to do it. They just do it for the sake of having a partnership, and the European clubs look at it as a way of marketing their club abroad. But I imagine Red Bull would be more efficient with their ways because they want to promote their brand as well. So they want to make it work. But as you mentioned, Bengaluru is a very good, very well-run club.
Yeah. Yes, you and I can start a club and we can do a partnership with Bristol City. I'm sure no one's going to have a problem with that. We can announce it also somewhere. All right. Getting back to Ralf Rangnick. Success hinges on 3 C's: concept, competence, and capital. We know, capital is not a problem. And so is he effectively saying, I'll bring the concept and the competence and you guys just give me the money for it and I'll get it done?
No, but competence has to be throughout the club, right? I mean, that's what he means by competence. So it's going to be a lot of time until competence really shines through at Manchester United. I mean, of course, they have fantastic players, the ones that Karan had mentioned before. But to make the whole thing cohesive and to compete with the likes of Man City and Liverpool, it's going to take time. It won't happen in 6 months.
This is a question to both of you. Does this mean it's the end of the road for McKenna and Carrick at Manchester United right now? Karan, you can start.
I don't think so. The news has been that they'll stay on for at least the next 6 months, and I imagine that they would be. I think Carrick's a bit more thorough. He's good with dealing with the media, dealing with the public. As a coach, you see in the last 2 games, it's only a small sample to use, but it seems like he has some ideas at least that would be quite useful. So I imagine Ralf Rangnick can at least make that better. And it's good to have experience from a coach, from a coach like Ralf Rangnick to sort of be your teacher and learn from him and pick up from that. So I imagine that they would stay at the club. And I don't know about Kieran McKenna. I don't know how much he's done at United so far, but Solskjaer found him quite useful to have in the team. And if Carrick's there, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be there either.
Yeah, this is what I've been reading about McKenna for 3 years now, that, he was promoted as Jose Mourinho's assistant after Rui Faria left. And then after every month you get an article, who is this Manchester United coach who is taking Jose trust implicitly and he takes individual training sessions. And once Jose was fired, I thought that was the end of it. But every 4 months you see an article about how everyone trusts McKenna implicitly and how he's loved by the players and his coaching methods are good. But something has to give, no? You fired Ole, you can't just blame only him and have his entire coaching staff. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that if the coach goes, the coaching staff along with him, most of them at least have to go as well, because it's not just one person's fault. Even recently after Ole was sacked, we used to see stories that McKenna's used to work with the team on set pieces, and players were confused about what to do. But I think that the 6-month period once again will be quite important for Ranić to see if he's good enough for the club. I think Carrick has shown some qualities, but I'm not very impressed. I don't know if McKenna does the same, and that's down for Ranić to judge after 6 months when this interim period ends.
Yeah. Yes. Does this mean that the Manchester United board is willing to let go of this season? They're like, we finish wherever we finish, but we need to basically get back to the drawing board, and this is the guy to help us do it.
I mean, the second half of what you said might be true. They may think he's the guy to help them to do it, but I'm sure they'll draw a line somewhere. I think. I mean, they've usually sacked managers who don't reach the Champions League or don't look likely to reach the Champions League. So I think that will be something that they'll judge even Ralf Rangnick by. The number 4, the 4th position in the league table is something that is sacrosanct for them, and getting into the Champions League is.
Because of the money.
Yeah, more or less.
So how do you define a corporate identity or a philosophy, Karan, if you're given 6 months and say, get this done? Isn't there like a dichotomy of, you're hiring a guy who basically says the results of what I do will be shown over a period of time. I will set everything about you guys right, and you'll be a football club, not a business entity. But if you are going to judge him in 6 months, like I understand short term and long term and stuff like that, but you need to give time to someone, right?
Yeah, 6 months is too short for anyone to judge how to run a football club, because of, firstly, how much damage was caused before Ralf Rangnick himself. I'm not talking about Solskjaer, I'm talking about beyond Solskjaer, maybe Mourinho, Van Gaal, even David Moyes' era. Stuff from 8 years ago is still affecting them today. But 6 months is too short to judge. I think that his 6-month period will be judged on the performances itself and where they finish in whatever competition, and then they have to look at the next 2 years if Rangnick stays on for that period, and that's where his success will truly be judged. So we're more or less looking at the next 2.5 years rather than just the next half year. So that's how it is for Ralf Rangnick. And as you mentioned, the competence part. If the concept and competence is implored in the club in the right way, it'll say a lot about Rangnick and his time at the club.
Yeah. The biggest question which almost every supporter has, and I've actually seen some media articles which talk about this as well, that Ralf Rangnick's imprints already on the club by basically benching Ronaldo, right? So the relationship between Ronaldo and Rangnick, everything we've spoken now, everything I've read before basically says Rangnick needs someone who presses a lot, who is 23 years or younger, everything who is not Ronaldo. How do you think that relationship is going to work?
It's a complicated question. I've been asked this myself so many times in the last few days, and I don't know. I'd assume that he'd find a way to keep him in the team and make the other 10 players accommodate for his lack of off-the-ball presence.
You should do that. You have freaking Cristiano Ronaldo on your squad.
Yeah, and Cristiano Ronaldo is also a bit of a problem for so many managers himself. I read a piece in The Guardian the other day where it said Ronaldo solves the problem Ronaldo creates. So what he lacks in pressing and off the ball presence, he makes up for with his immediate goals or moments where he can change a game. And that's you don't make a career if you're a bad footballer. Ronaldo scored 800 career goals or whatever number it is, or how many Ballon d'Or he's won, and that's a legendary career. But at this stage of his career, he's a different footballer than he was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And he's at other clubs, he had players doing the work for him, which is what he needs at United as well. The signing itself in August was perhaps a backwards move, even though it's strange. It's weird to say that about a player like Cristiano Ronaldo. At the time, they were building a young team with Sancho, Rashford, Greenwood, etc. And that's and then they saw the opportunity to sign Ronaldo on a cheap, and perhaps they might have wanted to intercept the move, or his move to City. So that's why he was bought in. There was clearly no clear plan, because all summer they wanted a midfielder, and they said they had no money. All of a sudden, Ronaldo was going to City and they find 20 million or 50 million if you include wages in the bank or whatever the figure is. So it seemed like it was a signing with no clear strategy and no clear plan, and it's a problem for the manager now, whoever it is. And I think Rangnick will have to find a way to make the other 10 players accommodate for him, or he can use him sporadically with Cavani or Greenwood or whoever the next forward is.
Yeah, I think that will be his biggest challenge in the 6 months. And the next one is he is supposedly going to have a complete say in who the next manager is going to be. And given who he is and what he's done everywhere else, who do you think United are going to appoint? Just take a punt at it.
I'm assuming, I've said this before, I think it's Mauricio Pochettino. I know Erik ten Hag's the more linked person, or many people want to see him more than they want to see Pochettino. I mainly say this because of, firstly, Pochettino's experience in the Premier League and his desire to return to England and manage Manchester United, and his lack of happiness at PSG. I think the PSG, while they have people like Messi and Neymar and Mbappe, it's just too much of a hassle. Even Thomas Tuchel said this before, where he felt he was the sports minister of the club and he had to manage the players and their families, which is not the coach's job. But Pochettino, I imagine, would want to leave PSG at the end of the season and come back to England. And secondly, because of Erik ten Hag's clash in identity, I think that Ten Hag and Rangnick are very are opposite on their football vision. I think that Ten Hag focuses more on Cruyffianism, which is more possession-based football, and while they have elements of keeping that same intensity off the ball and pressing high up and that sort of thing, I think that there's a clash between the German gegenpressing of Ralf Rangnick and the Cruyffianism of Ten Hag. So I think that would be the main issue there, and I think Pochettino, for that reason, would be the number one choice.
Don't you think he would go like completely left field and get someone like Adi Hutter or Marco Rose?
It's possible, I've seen names like that linked, even Ralph Hasenhüttl from Southampton.
Don't say Ralph Hasenhüttl. Yash will start crying. He doesn't want the Southampton manager. They're meant for Liverpool.
I still think he's a good enough manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl. He has a bad reputation in England now, mainly because he's lost 2 games 9-0. But a manager's career shouldn't be defined by 2 losses, even though they are quite embarrassing defeats.
Yeah, but the biggest credit you can give to Ralph Hasenhüttl is, they had which was that very bad result they had, 9-2 or something, right? Against Leicester. Didn't they lose like a really
9-0. bad... 9-0, yep. 9-0,
yeah, 9-0. So, and to get the club back from there to where they finished that season, I think he is a good manager. I'm just saying that go for the sexy win.
He's done respectable work at Southampton. I think that, Southampton's policy for the last few years has been they have to sell to buy because they have so little money to invest, or their owners are unwilling to invest. So I think he's done good enough for what he has. But I think his next job would be in Germany rather than England because of how stained his reputation is in England. But for United itself, I think that there could easily be a left field appointment like Rosa or Hutter or whoever. But it seems as though Pochettino is the more likely choice, at least now.
Yeah, yes, brace yourself for Pochettino Rangnick combination, and you're going to get every loss of United is going to be so bad.
United were linked with Pochettino since 2018, so this is not surprising at all. I'm sure there are a lot of backers of Pochettino in United anyway.
In a way, it's all right. Oh yeah, Karan, you think because Conte went to Tottenham, United did this? Like in the most cynical level, if Conte was available, they wouldn't have done all this, right? So we're talking about how the club wants to reset everything because Conte is at Tottenham.
I think so, yeah. I think that they left the sacking of Solskjaer too late. When you lose 5-0 and 2-0 to your biggest rivals at home as well, and the squad seemed lost. I think that was, with all due respect to Solskjaer, he's been a good enough coach. He's done good enough for the club. The players respect him towards the end and even now. And they should have just ended it right there at the international break rather than stretching it out for a further 2 weeks, losing to Watford and seeing Conte go away. So I think it was a bit of a late appointment, but they made what they could out of it and got Ralf Rangnick. So hopefully there's a long-term plan with them.
Yeah. So yes, they basically shot in the dark and somehow ended at what seems to be a logically right answer.
Yeah, or maybe we should... we can give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they have learned from their past and now come up with a more long-term plan.
Dude, I don't think any of us believe that, but yeah, whatever. Like, Karan, are you starting to write a book called The Wings of Change Manchester United Edition? I think it's time you start writing it.
It's possible. I did consider after Wings of Change to do a biography on Ralph Rangnick, and I'm glad I waited now because obviously the United news. So maybe in the future, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, if he still stays at United, maybe there could be something coming out soon.
All right. What are you writing right now? I know it's about Ajax, but why don't you just tell us describe what the book's going to be?
Well, right now I'm on a mini holiday, but because I finished writing my second book. But the second book was based about Ajax, or is based about Ajax. It's called Glorious Reinvention. It's about how Ajax became Ajax right now. They had a bad 21st century, or a bad start to the 21st century, and they've recovered. And in recent times, we've seen them go from being a club that's mismanaged to a club that reached the Europa League final and the Champions League semi-final, in addition to winning domestic trophies. So it looks at that entire arc. It covers a lot about Edwin van der Sar. Obviously, we all love Edwin van der Sar. And it looks at careers such as Ten Hag's, such as Peter Bosz, and it looks at how they've become a modern football club once again to compete with the very best. So maybe if Ten Hag moves to United, we could get a bit of that too.
Yeah, but not to talk too much about Ajax, or when the book comes out, we will talk about it. But wasn't there a realization in the club that they really need to catch players much younger than what they were doing? And a lot of work was done to get them to start playing in their teams much younger, so that because there was I think a realization that inevitably they will be sold. So you may as well you have to start putting them younger.
Yeah, there was this feeling that players were leaving. Obviously, they recognized that players were going to leave, and if they wanted to leave, they would not stand in their way. So Ajax, it's always been in their culture to promote young players, and obviously now younger players are becoming better at younger ages. We look at Mbappe and Haaland; they're playing at Ballon d'Or level at the age of 19 and 20. So Ajax obviously had that talent themselves, and they promoted them to the first team, and we've seen how good they can be. Ryan Gravenberch is an example. Jurrien Timber, both of them, I think they're under 20 years old. Even Anthony came from Brazil, and he's been quite successful. So they want to do that thing where they promote younger players, and they've been quite successful with it.
All right. The final question on this: what position is United going to finish the season in? Everything, all said and done. You've thought about everything, and it's a 6-month appointment. So, given all of that, do you still think that United will finish the Champions League positions this season?
I think so, yes. I think that the Rangnick appointments changed it. I think that top 4 is still doable. They're only 5 points behind right now, so it's not that big a gap. And they've recovered bigger gaps before. So I think that they will be able to do it. But there will be still a significant gap between 4th, where they are, and the top 3 of Chelsea, City and Liverpool. I think Chelsea will eventually win the league, and there'll be City right behind them, Liverpool behind them, but then a big gap before United.
Yes, is that your feeling as well?
I completely concur with Karan on this.
What do you mean? That they'll finish 4th, but the gap will be so big?
Because if you look at the way the Premier League has been gone, I think Chelsea, City and Liverpool are miles ahead of the rest of the teams. Among the other 70 teams, I think United, simply because of their roster being so strong, and now a much better coach being in charge of them, they'll come through. They'll be the best of the rest and be in the top.
Yeah. I would add, though, I'm more excited to see them in the Champions League. I think that they have a decent enough chance to go at least quarterfinal of the Champions League. And then if they're lucky with the draw, if they avoid Bayern Munich or City or Chelsea, something like that, they have a good chance of going further than that. So at least quarterfinal, I'm expecting that.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it talks about the state of the time that we have Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel and Ralph Rangnick, 3 German coaches finishing in top 4 of the English league. So
yep.
Pep is our odd man out. So whatever. All right, Karan, thanks a lot for recording this. I will put this on the show notes, but you could follow Karan on Twitter @Karan_Tejwani26. His book on Red Bull is called Wings of Change. Please go buy it. It's an amazing book. Actually, it is quite a breezy read, Karan. So I don't know if that was your intention or not, but you've done a good job with it. I actually had quite fun reading it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming in, Karan. And Yash, this is hoping for the best for Manchester United, man. I hope they finish 4th. It's so annoying to see the biggest club falter around like this. We've already seen Arsenal go down. We don't want to see United go down. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, Yash. And thanks, Karan.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks to Garima Pandey. She is the co-founder of Wandering Jane. They discuss solo travel and how it's perceived. Does the story of a fake lawyer on the run sound interesting to you? Then definitely tune into Misconduct. Raghavi and Nisha discuss the story of Ceci Xavier. On KBCD, Farhad and Sunitru discuss how sometimes people don't feel inclined towards sex, some possible causes, and how it's okay to feel so occasionally. On Press Decode, Sarah and Prafula are joined by author and journalist Sandeep Roy. They discuss the no stags policy that many bars and restaurants follow across the country. Do check out Hanswani, the story Tirthan talks to us about the aspiration and challenges of widowed women. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, do remember, go check out our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, to get a list of all of our YouTube channels. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, HDFC Mutual Fund, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankari podcast every Wednesday. सिर्फ IVM podcast ऐप या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.